Dear, you won't believe this, but your mom has been surprisingly nice to me lately. She's been calling and texting more often than usual. It feels like she's actually warming up to me. Have you talked to her recently? I know things haven't always been great between you two. I can still remember the moment Peter's message threw me off guard. My mom, Margaret, is known for being tough, even cruel at times. For the past 5 years, she's kept her distance from most of the family, except for my sister, Amy, to avoid conflict. My husband and I have kept a safe distance from her too. I never really told Peter the full story about Margaret's behavior. I wanted to leave all that behind. But now, I can't help wondering, why is she suddenly being so nice? Is it for real, or is there some ulterior motive? Margaret has always been manipulative and sneaky, so I can't shake the feeling that something's off. The more I think about it, the more it bothers me. Margaret's been spending an unusual amount of time with Peter lately, joking around with him, chatting on the phone, even inviting him out for lunch. I wish I could just relax and hope for the best, but I'm too wary. I tried to bring up my concerns with Peter, but he brushed them off, thinking it's good that she's trying to connect with him. He doesn't understand the years of tension that kept me from her. I feel like I'm losing him to her, even though I know him well enough to see that he doesn't fully grasp how dangerous she can be. Deep down, I can't bring myself to believe she's really changed. Peter, we need to talk. I'm really worried about how much time you're spending with Margaret all of a sudden. I haven't been honest with you about her. She's unstable and unpredictable. Peter didn't seem to take me seriously. What's the problem? Margaret and I have just been having coffee and catching up. It doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe she really wants to make things right. Frustration and fear boiled up inside me. How could he not see it? He was so eager to believe the best in her, but I couldn't ignore the years of hurt she had caused. Peter, please. I've dealt with Margaret's manipulation before. She knows how to twist things, make everyone doubt themselves. I'm honestly scared of what she's up to. I don't trust her, and I don't think we should. But my warning fell on deaf ears. Peter clung to his belief that Margaret had changed, that there was nothing to fear. I could feel a tight knot forming in my stomach, a sinking sensation that told me our relationship was being tested in a way I hadn't anticipated. As I reflected on the time I had spent with Peter, I remembered how happy we had been. We'd faced challenges, yes, but our love had always been strong enough to carry us through. I used to believe we could overcome anything together, but now, everything felt uncertain. It was as if betrayal had crept into our lives, and I hadn't seen it coming. Maybe I had been too hard on him, too quick to doubt. Peter, I'm sorry if I've seemed overly suspicious of you lately. My history with Margaret has made it hard for me to believe she could change, and I shouldn't have questioned you. That was wrong. Helen, I understand. Don't worry about it. I know things have been tense between you and your mom. I get how unsettling this must be for you. In that moment, a small spark of hope flickered inside me. Peter's understanding, his willingness to forgive, gave me a sense of relief I hadn't expected. Thanks, Peter. I really want to try and trust her again. Maybe we can work through this together. We embraced, and for a moment, I felt like everything might be okay. But just as the tension seemed to lift, Peter dropped a bombshell that chilled me to the core. By the way, Margaret asked if we'd join her and Amy for dinner. She wants to fix things. Helen, she thinks it could help heal the family. I think it could be a good step forward. My heart raced when Margaret extended that sudden invitation. It set off alarms in my mind, stirring up a deep sense of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this dinner than what met the eye. It felt like a trap. I urged Peter to be cautious, trying to express my discomfort, but it was hard to fully explain the gnawing feeling inside me. I wanted to be open to mending things, but I couldn't ignore the sense that something was off. Amy had always been my mom's accomplice, and my gut told me they were scheming behind the scenes. Peter's expression shifted from curiosity to concern, but I couldn't get him to fully understand. Despite my warnings, we agreed to go. 2 weeks later, I found myself standing outside my mom's house for the first time in 10 years. The dinner with Peter, Margaret, and Amy felt like stepping into an unfamiliar and unsettling chapter of my past. It was like opening a box that had long been sealed shut. As we walked inside, Margaret and Amy greeted me with wide smiles and flattering words. They acted as though nothing had changed, offering warmth and compliments that, to be honest, only made me more suspicious. Amy's tone felt off. It was too sweet, too rehearsed. I pushed my discomfort aside, telling myself I should focus on reconnecting with the family, even if it didn't feel entirely genuine. The dinner went smoothly, or at least, it appeared to. We laughed, shared stories, and caught up on the years that had passed. Yet beneath the surface, something didn't sit right. Amy's eyes lingered on Peter too long, and the praise she heaped on him felt excessive, almost as if she were trying too hard to make him feel at home. I couldn't shake the suspicion that something was going on, but I kept telling myself to stay calm and not jump to conclusions. The unease inside me wouldn't fade. Despite my trust in Peter, I couldn't ignore the palpable tension that lingered in the air. Amy tried to pull him aside for private conversations twice that evening, making me feel even more on edge. As the night dragged on, her attention toward Peter became increasingly noticeable. At one point, she even hinted that I might be controlling him too much. I quickly defended our relationship, emphasizing the trust we had, but the discomfort in my chest remained. Something wasn't right, and the dinner left me unsettled. The next 3 weeks only seemed to confirm my worries. Out of the blue, Amy sent me a message, expressing how nice it had been to see me and Peter recently. I thanked her for the invitation, and she suggested that we get together, just the sisters, for a catch-up. Though I had always been wary of Amy, especially given our past, she hadn't crossed any major lines during the strange dinner. Unsure of her motives, I agreed to meet her for coffee, hoping to understand where she was coming from. Amy quickly steered the conversation toward relationships, which made my stomach tighten. Why was she so suddenly interested in Peter? When we met at the coffee shop, I couldn't help but wonder if people could truly change. I greeted Amy, awkwardness hanging between us. She seemed genuinely interested in reconnecting, mentioning how much she missed our bond. Despite my unease, I wanted to believe this was a sincere attempt at rebuilding our relationship. However, the conversation soon took an uncomfortable turn. Amy started asking probing questions about my marriage, specifically how I won over Peter. I was taken aback by her focus on him, and the more she inquired, the more suspicious I became. Her questions seemed to mask a deeper interest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Eventually, Amy admitted that she was looking for advice on relationships. She wanted to understand how I had landed someone like Peter. Her curiosity about how to win a man's heart immediately raised red flags. I began to wonder if this wasn't really about reconnection at all. The Amy I used to know would never have been so fixated on relationship strategies. She was smart enough to know that love wasn't about tricks or formulas. So what was she really after? Amy, I said, trying to be honest. Building a successful relationship isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about real connection, trust, understanding. But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that her questions weren't just about relationships in general. She was focused on something specific. Someone specific. Amy shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her gaze flitting away as she fidgeted with her coffee cup. It was clear now, something was off. The old family dynamics had resurfaced. Margaret, my mother, was likely behind it all. Amy eventually confessed that Mom had been pressuring her to settle down, even comparing her life to mine. Amy referred to me as the princess girl, someone who had everything figured out. That's when I realized Mom had never forgiven me for rejecting her manipulations all those years ago. As Amy continued to ask about Peter's likes, dislikes, and preferences, my suspicions deepened. I gave her vague answers, unwilling to reveal too much, but it was obvious she was trying to gather information. And every time she mentioned Margaret, my unease grew. When I got home that evening, I found Peter in the kitchen, making a snack. I casually asked him about his interaction with Amy, and he mentioned their distant relationship. I was surprised he hadn't mentioned any of this before. The next week, I noticed more troubling signs. Peter seemed more withdrawn, spending more time at work and giving me endless excuses for not being home. I had initially brushed it off as him just working hard, but the pattern began to emerge. Something was changing, and I could feel it. Then, after weeks of silence, my mom reached out to me. She asked how I had been, and the message struck me like a cold draft. Why was she reaching out now? Hi, Mom. I hope you're doing well. Things have been busy on my end, but everything's fine. By the way, something exciting is coming your way soon. It might make you rethink a few things from the past. Margaret's message stirred a mix of curiosity and anxiety in me. What could she be planning now? I thought. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Still, I wanted to keep the door open for a better relationship. Maybe it's time we finally cleared the air. I'm not sure what you mean, but let's talk soon. I really want to work things out between us. Her response was vague but oddly reassuring. Okay, don't worry. Let's just say you'll get what's fair. I hope you're doing okay. I couldn't help but feel uneasy after reading her message. What did she mean by fair? And as if that weren't enough, little did I know, this was only the beginning of a nightmare I couldn't see coming, the beginning of the end of my marriage. When Peter came home that night, I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary, but the moment he walked in, something felt off. Helen, we need to talk. There's something important I need to tell you. Peter, what's going on? You look upset. Is everything okay? He hesitated for a long moment, looking as if the words were weighing him down. Then, he finally spoke. I don't really know how to say this, but I've made a decision. I'm ending our marriage. Helen, I've fallen in love with someone else. My heart wants what it wants. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. It felt like the ground was slipping from under me. Divorce? And someone else? My mind spun as I struggled to process what he was telling me. I never saw this coming. Who could he possibly be talking about? Peter's gaze dropped as if ashamed, but his next words shattered me completely. I'm sorry, Helen. I never meant to hurt you. But it's Amy. We've been seeing each other, and we're getting married. I can't imagine my life without her. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to close in around me. My sister. The betrayal sliced through me in ways I couldn't describe. Tears welled up in my eyes, and every ounce of strength left my body. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words didn't come easily. My own sister. Peter? How could you do this to me? The disbelief in my voice was almost suffocating. I couldn't understand how this had happened. How had my life turned into this? The man I loved, and the sister I trusted, had shattered everything. It's making me sick. I spat, unable to hold back the fury. How could you betray our family like this? Helen, you need to understand, Peter said, his voice steady but lacking any remorse. Amy and I are happy together. Your mom is supporting us. She's helping us financially so we can start our new life. His words hit me like a knife, each one digging deeper than the last. And then it hit me. My mom, she had planned this. She had schemed to tear Peter away from me and destroy everything we had. The trust one had in her, in Amy, in everything I thought was solid, shattered in an instant. My entire family, once the people I leaned on, had turned against me. The betrayal was beyond anything I could have imagined. Peter went on, explaining how happy he and Amy were, how they couldn't wait to build a future together. But I wasn't listening. I couldn't. My whole world had collapsed, and I could barely process what I was hearing. How had everything gone so wrong? The love I had for Peter was gone, replaced by an overwhelming wave of anger and heartbreak. This wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage, it was a betrayal of everything we'd ever shared. My hands shook with rage. I couldn't even look at him without feeling sick. "Peter," I said, my voice trembling but firm, "after everything we've been through, you betray me with my own sister? Get out, now." "I'm sorry, Helen, but I can't just leave like this. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out a way forward. I want you to find happiness too." I could feel my chest tighten, a knot of disbelief and fury rising. "No, there's nothing left to talk about. You've broken everything. Our trust, our marriage. I can't stand to look at you. Leave, now." "This doesn't feel right, Helen. I don't want to." "I don't care what you want," I snapped. "Just leave." I watched him gather his things, my heart a storm of emotions, anger, betrayal, hurt, and something even deeper I couldn't name. The sight of him walking toward the door felt surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't wake from. But this wasn't a dream, it was my reality. Before he left, Peter turned to me one last time. "Helen, I'm truly sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you like this. I hope, someday, you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I didn't respond. My body felt like lead, the pain too overwhelming to speak. I could only manage to say, "You need to go." As Peter walked out of our home, the weight of it all pressed down on me. I was alone, betrayed by the man I trusted, and by the family I had always relied on. How had this happened? What had I done to deserve this? Tears filled my eyes as I sank to the floor, the cold reality of my broken life crashing over me. How would I get through this? Could I rebuild? Could I ever trust again? Later that night, another blow came, this time from my mother. "Helen, just so you know, I've won. Peter is mine now, and there's nothing you can do about it. He's bound to us forever. You'll never find happiness again. You can't escape me." Her message was a slap in the face, and it knocked the wind out of me. I read it over and over, trying to make sense of what she was saying. Is this really happening? How could my own mother be so cruel? How could she revel in my pain, using Amy to take Peter away from me? It felt like a nightmare, one I couldn't wake from. What did I do to deserve a mother like this? "Mom, your actions have hurt me, but they won't define who I am. I won't let you ruin my life anymore. This was your final chance. Peter may be gone, but I'm stronger now. I will find my own happiness, and it won't depend on anyone else." With that, I blocked her. It was the last time I ever spoke to my mother. The very next day, something unexpected happened. I was relaxing in the living room when suddenly, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I froze. Peter was standing on the other side, his face a mixture of guilt and desperation. Fast forward 5 days, and there was another knock on the door. This time, when I opened it, Peter's face was contorted with anger and frustration. "Peter, what are you doing here?" I asked, already feeling the tension rising. "I thought we sorted everything out. If we need to talk, we can do it through our lawyers. Please, just go. Don't act clueless, Helen," he snapped, his voice sharp. "Why didn't you tell me your mom had issues? Oh, you didn't know what was going on? Amy wants access to my bank account. Your mom and Margaret won't leave us alone, and they treat me like dirt. I'm losing my mind." My heart sank. "Oh, Peter, that's awful. Why didn't you tell me any of this before?" Peter seemed exasperated, pacing a bit. "Helen, You knew your mom had problems. You didn't think to mention it? I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my composure. I tried to give you a heads up. I've been dealing with my mom's mental issues for years, and Amy only made things worse. I didn't want to drag you into that mess, but you wouldn't listen. Peter's face softened, regret washing over him. Amy and Margaret have made my life miserable, and that money your mom promised me? Nowhere to be found. They've lied to me, Helen. I never wanted you to be involved in that toxic environment, I said quietly. I tried to protect you from the chaos of my family. I thought it would spare you the pain, but I see now that I was wrong. Peter's expression shifted, a mix of guilt and sorrow. Helen, I see that now. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please, give me another chance. I'll do whatever it takes. For a moment, part of me wanted to say yes, but then, the weight of the betrayal in our marriage hit me all over again. I couldn't forget what had happened. Unfortunately, Peter, there's no future for us, I said firmly, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I'm sorry, but it's time to say goodbye. Peter tried to argue, pleaded with me, and even got angry, but I remained resolute. I had spent far too long letting people walk all over me, taking advantage of my love and loyalty. I had to put an end to it, for my own peace of mind. Eventually, we parted ways, amicably yet painfully, and, as painful as it was, I made the decision to permanently cut ties with my mom. That chapter of my life was closed. The universe had shown me the importance of standing up for myself. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary. I threw myself into a fresh start. I found a new job, moved to a different country, and slowly, I began to heal. Love found me again, in a way I never expected. And this time, I knew it was real. Later this year, I'm getting married again, and I couldn't be more excited for what lies ahead in this new chapter of my life.